Hey everybody, I'm Shannon Dow and I have my partner Michael Gerali on here with me as well. We're with Healthcare Genius, and if you have watched any of our videos, you know how passionate we are about educating people about healthcare and retirement. It's such an important topic, and unfortunately in the financial planning industry, we feel like it is almost always missed in a really big way. And so today we wanted to talk to you about why we feel so strongly about this topic, why we continue to educate people and to hammer in, how important it is, and just give you a little bit of insight into why we specialize in what we do and how we would like to see this industry change for the better. Okay, so the first thing that I wanted to ask you, Michael, is how do you see the role of healthcare and retirement in the whole planning picture?
As you mentioned, this is a passion that has really been part of our practice for the last 15 years. The hard part for most people is that to do proper planning, you need to have an idea of what the future looks like. So you need to understand what costs are going to be, or at least a forecast of what costs are going to be. We mentioned in a previous video, we talked about Fidelity. Fidelity for years has been putting out an estimate of healthcare costs in retirement to give people an idea, but that estimate is really based on kind of a generic person and doesn't take into account means testing or the increased premiums for Medicare based on your income. But if you start with our philosophy on this, and that is that most advisors now consider themselves to be fiduciaries. There was some rules that were written during the Obama administration that would have required all advisors to act in their client's best interest, which is essentially what a fiduciary is required to do. You're acting in the best interest of your client, not yourself as the advisor. While that didn't pass or get implemented, it's still the best rule of thumb is that you should be acting in the best interest of your client. So when it comes to healthcare, most financial advisors really don't deal with it. It's not an area that they focus on. They're focused on normally growing a client's assets, and in some cases they're focused on distributions of a client's assets. But very few of them are familiar with healthcare costs. When we look at it, we think everybody should be looking at healthcare in a different way and planning for it, not at 65 when a person retires or turns 65 and can get onto Medicare. We think you should be looking at this decades before so that you create a proper plan.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we say is the fastest and easiest way to completely derail your retirement plan is to have a big healthcare event or a long-term care event in retirement, or even before retirement, because those things happen as well. You can do a great job of retirement planning in a lot of ways, but if you're not protecting yourself against certain risks, you can take all of that planning and just throw it in the trash.
To use an analogy, if you own a business or if you work for a state pension plan or a local government pension plan, the way fiduciary is defined in those roles is that the job of those individuals who manage those retirement pension plans is to make sure that when an employee retires, that the plan has enough money to pay out what the promises that have been made to that employee are. That's pretty simple. And it isn't about trying to say how much money can we make. It's not about trying to get the greatest returns. It's about being able to keep that promise. And we see healthcare as the same way. Other things that you do in retirement are flexible. When you're saving for vacations, or if you're saving for a retirement home, or if you just want to be able to go out to dinner 5 times a week, those are flexible goals. Healthcare in most cases is not flexible. And as a matter of fact, the more successful you've been, as we show in a number of our videos, the more you're going to actually pay for healthcare costs. So healthcare is very much to us like a pension in the sense that these are going to be fixed costs, they will be increasing over time, and you want to be able to save for those costs in a way that will make sure the money is going to be there, that's not subject to market downturns.
That's right. You hear us talk a lot about different products that have guarantees like life insurance. And the reason is exactly what you said, Michael. Those costs are going to be there. And it's so important for every single person to have a vehicle where they can take out money for healthcare costs in retirement, and they can do that tax-free.
And that's another great point, Shannon, is that a lot of planners will incorporate, they may be looking at the Fidelity study or they may be looking at healthcare costs, but they're probably not factoring in the tax side. And that's something that we do a lot. We're looking for tax advantaged investments when you retire that you can take out to pay those healthcare costs. Because if it's all taxable, then you're actually paying more money because you have to pay taxes first, and then what's left over is what you can use to spend for those healthcare costs.
Now that you have a little bit of insight into how we think about healthcare costs in retirement, you know how important it is. It can be difficult to project, so we've actually created a tool where you can answer a couple of quick questions and have a great forecast of what those expenses might look like. It takes different things into consideration like age, income, which affects how much you'll pay for Medicare, which is something that people miss quite often. It'll take Social Security into account, and this is actually totally free. You can just go to the link that we have in our description below if it's something that you're interested in or you want to talk through with your advisor. It just takes a couple minutes and you'll get a comprehensive report of what those costs will be. And we actually include long-term care forecasting in there as well, which we also think is a really big piece of the puzzle for a lot of people.
Yeah, Shannon, when we created this forecasting tool, the thing that we were trying to do was to, as we mentioned, Fidelity has a survey that they do each year, but we wanted to make it more specific and variable based on a person's income and when they were going to retire. So it should give you a good feel. The other part of this is that we do show Social Security, because something that a lot of people aren't aware of, and that is that when you retire and you start paying those Medicare premiums, they come right out of your Social Security check. So it isn't like you have a choice. So again, that's why these are fixed costs that definitely are going to be there. In, if anything, we think that the numbers we use are probably more conservative than what the future will hold, and that just has to do with all the baby boomers and even the Gen Xers that'll be coming along for retirement down the road. So it's definitely something to take a look at, do that survey, and at least give yourself an idea of what those costs may look like.
That's right. So moral of the story here is it's really, really important to have a good idea of what those costs will look like for you and for your family when you do retire. And the other thing that we just really want to encourage people to do is make sure that you're planning appropriately and you're looking at financial products that will give you a guarantee for costs that you know will be there no matter what. So we'd be happy to help you with that. You can apply to become our client in the description below, or if you need to sit down with your advisor and have a good conversation with them, just make sure it's something that you're thinking about and you're planning. The last thing we want is for anybody's retirement plans, like I said before, to be derailed by healthcare costs in retirement, whether it's unexpected events or just purely paying for Medicare, which unfortunately a lot of people don't understand those costs. So make sure you educate yourselves. We're always here if you have questions, and we have tons of content here on our YouTube channel. Subscribe and click the notification bell so you know when we come out with new content. And again, we are always here to help.